And then finally, before leaving the ER, I did want to make passing mention of the fact that lipids are synthesized in the ER, and a mechanism that's fairly unusual and is shown in figure 1254 of your text. So the way it happens is that newly synthesized lipid is added actually to only one of the two leaflets, and specifically it's added on the cytosolic side, so it's added to this, what will eventually be the cytofacial face of the plasma membrane, and that leaves you with more lipid on the cytofacial than on the luminal side for temporarily, and it requires enzymatic activity to move something like this phospholipid across to the other leaflet. That activity is a very poorly described activity referred to as scramblase. So exactly which enzymes do it and how is not all that well understood, but we call that activity scramblase because it generates what's shown here, that is a symmetric arrangement of phospholipids, so you don't have that asymmetry of phospholipid composition that's characteristic of the cytoplasmic membrane that we talked about in the last exam section. So this is what's delivered to the cytoplasmic membrane, this asymmetric distribution of phospholipid, and this is where it is delivered to. So this is the asymmetric phosphatidylcholine up here, maybe some sphingolipid, PE, PS, and PI along here. But the newly synthesized lipid that fuses with the cytoplasmic membrane has the random, or what they're calling symmetrical, distribution of phospholipids. So you end up with a situation in which the wrong phospholipids are on the exofacial surface. So, for example, this might be PE, this might be PI, or it might be PS. So that's where the enzyme flipase comes into play. It basically scans the exofacial leaflet, finds the phospholipids that it considers to be out of place, and catalyzes their flipping down to the cytofacial surface to end up with which we want, which is the appropriate asymmetric distribution of phospholipids. So it turns out that during apoptosis, one of the key targets of the caspases that catalyze that collection of proteolytic responses that lead to programmed cell death, something that I'll talk about on the last day of class. Caspases have as one of their targets this flipase activity. So if you knock that out, then you end up with this, which is, of course, a distribution in which phosphatidylserine is now sticking on the exofacial surface, and it's basically serving as a beacon to the macrophages or phagocytic cells out here that says, "Eat me, I am an apoptotic body." And then last but, least as well, I want to introduce the dogs that were making such a fuss during that video. The first one you heard, actually the one you heard all the way through, was Jo, Pomeranian. She's 18 years old, so she gets to bark whenever she wants to. Then later on, Einstein joins, kind of a high-pitched bark. Sturgill came in towards the end, a much deeper bark. Hank, I don't think barked, and he was outside anyway, but if he barked, you would have heard it for sure. You wouldn't have heard me. But anyway, those are the characters. I'm thinking that you're going to have to get used to hearing them for the rest of the semester.